All right, I got a new shock mount finally. My other one was broken, but we're back in business now. Um, it's Monday. This will be a 1 hour stream. I have a to do. Um, lot to do today. I do want to show you guys what I'm working on. And I do want to give you guys an update about the company really quick if you are watching. So, as you know, we had given our staff Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off. So, we're working as quickly as we can to get through all the orders. Let me check and see how quick they are. So, because we have Samantha helping out, and then we have our new shop tech as well. She's doing really well. Let's see. Oh, there's only 26 in the queue. So it looks like they got, damn, they got, I want everybody to give them a shout out because we had like 300 plus orders that came in from like Christmas Eve up until today. And they got everything out. They even got me my order here. Yes, I order from my own store. I literally put an order in. And my shipping service is the Clear Express. So, but I think they did this just to mess with me. It's okay. It's in a box. So I'm doing something a little different. I know I've done some custom builds on here, and people always ask me, why do I not use an easy board? That's a good question. So, I got myself one of the Creality LCDs right here. I have a mount printing for it right now. Got my filament sensor, my MOSFET, and I'm printing all the parts for this. So here's the 2020 bracket for the MOSFET. And I found a case that'll work with the Easy Board. It was branded an SKR E3 mini case. Found one on Thingiverse. That'll bolt it onto the 2020 extrusion. So the printer that this is going to go on and the firmware I'm working on is a universal firmware for the Easy Board, meaning you plug in your bed size, you run through the end stop test to see if they need to be inverted or not, that kind of stuff. So people that want to use them in a custom build, which is what I'm doing, will have an easier time getting started with the code. And I'm also going to put together a little package of the STL files I'm using. So the MOSFET mount, I'm using a Meanwell LRS 350 series power supply in this machine. So a universal 2020 mount, that universal board mount that will put our board onto the 2020 extrusion. And then I'm using a Creality LCD because that's what our board is designed to use. So I have a couple of exciting things before we get into it. While I'm talking, I want you guys to post your questions in chat so I have stuff to answer when I'm done rambling. So a couple of things I've been working on. Spent all morning, and this is an Ender 3 style LCD. It's just like Creality's one, but I have it hooked up as if an Ender 3 was connected to the 2560 Creality board. Now this is the standard one. This doesn't have the E1 driver installed, but it works fine for testing. And what I'm testing here is the dual. We sell a board that's like this, but modified with the 5th driver installed. So I'm testing the Unified 2 on here, so we can get the Unified 2 on the dual boards that we sell. So we're really close. I just have to do some testing, but got like 99% of this done. So that's what's in the works. And then the next project is going to be this. I don't know if you guys remember Bertha. Bertha I've had for about, I want to say almost 3 years. Maybe not that long. Definitely more than 2, but less than 3. So Bertha is an AlphaWise U10. This was a really good budget machine back in the day, except the motherboard in this is some proprietary weird one I can't get. So I'm going to put an Easy Board in it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm printing all these parts, and we're going to just mount everything to the extrusion underneath the bed. And I'm going to live stream most of that, if not all of it. Yeah, this one has DRV 8825. So basically the board was having issues, and we're basically giving Bertha a refresh. So I'm going to go over all the cabling, like, this was in the print farm for a while, and like here's the end. This is the X end stop cable. This needs to be fixed. So basically, I'm going over refreshing Bertha. I'm gonna mount the LCD screen right here. I'm gonna take these little things and trim them back. So there'll be a LCD like right here on the left. I'm gonna stuff the easy board and the MOSFET underneath on these rails in here, and then on the back right here or the left, I haven't decided where, but either way, behind the Z motors is where we're going to mount the power supply. So it'll all be self-contained. This will be gone. This is just like a project. This isn't like me trying to sell you guys a universal kit. It's just a project. And I want to share the progress of that project for you. So hopefully it gives you guys an idea of how you can convert things. Now, I could try to reuse the stock screen on this, but these screens are less than $20 and they're plug and play with the easy board. So I'd rather just use the Creality screens. And you can see here, if I can pan this over, hang on, let's see. Can we get that over here? Hang on. There we go. There's the LCD housing printing right there. So it's about halfway done. And then the control box is printing there on my CR10. And I'm doing that at a 0.3 layer height. That's got a 0.6 volcano nozzle. So, and then I can't show you it, or I could, actually I can show you it because I have a camera on it. There's the good for nothing security. What do we pay you for, Clara? Clara, you're sleeping on the job, girl. What do you think, you're union? You're supposed to be keeping watch. Anyway, so that's what projects I have. I'm trying to wrap up as much stuff as I can before the end of the year, because this printer's been down for a while, and there are some projects I would like to do. This is how old this printer is. This is like one of the original like flex plate samples. This is the 410, and you can see there's no tabs, there's no brand or anything. This was just like a sample that my supplier sent me, and it's been through the ringer. It actually doesn't look that bad. This is about 2 years old. You can see the outlines of the Easy ABL cases on there. So we did use this for production for a while, but then the board started having issues. So yeah, I'm gonna get this back up and running. I'm gonna put a new flex plate on it. I'm reprinting so Barney's running up there, printing the new hot end mount to replace the one that's cracked. I have a Pets Fang set up on here with dual 5015 fans. Now, this is the only printer I have dual 5015 fans on because this has a 0.8 nozzle. So when I'm really pushing the filament out, I need that extra cooling. But if you're running like a 0.4, 0.6, you don't need dual 5015s. So yeah, this is a little side project, and I'm gonna share with you guys the progress. And just so it makes my life easier updating machines in the future, that I want to put the easy board in, like retrofit it in, like a universal type thing. I'm going to code up something that's, basically plug in your bed size and write up a guide, but it's not going to be officially like you can call tech support, and get help with it. It's just going to be more of a, hey, here's a DIY type thing. If you want to get your feet wet in it, I'll put information out there. So, but I don't know. I was hemming and hawing about what board to put in. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put easy board in it because I just want it. I want the damn thing to work. So, yeah. So, yeah. Soval SVR1 firmware is done for Unified 2. So that'll be getting pushed out soon. The dual board firmware is almost done. And that'll be getting pushed out soon as in the next couple of days here. I just got to finish doing some more compiles and flashing on the boards. And if I show you guys here, let me close out of all my private crap before I do a screen share here. Does anybody know of a program that I can tell it, that I can like click it and it'll kill a list of programs, like, and then reopen them when I'm done? Cause that would be great. Like I can set like all my messengers and stuff and be like, okay, I'm going to stream, click, and it kills them all instead of me having to manually exit them. That'd be fantastic. So if anybody has any recommendations, Oh, and looks like Doug just volunteered himself to help me out. I appreciate you, Doug. Mr. Waffle. So, all right, let's go to a screen share here. So this is what the firmware looks like right now. I've got a million different things open because I'm trying to make sure everything's correct, and I'm also trying to make it easy. So, so what I've done here, this is, if you guys haven't figured out what we're doing with the firmware, is we're grouping them into what processor they use. And the reason we're doing that is, one, to make it less cluttered. Instead of having a million different printers in one file, we only have a few. But the main reason is because in platform with the Marlin 2 and VS Code, you have to set this default environment setting. So, and that's dependent on the processor on the board. So that's how our new firmware is broken up, is the packages are packed based on what processor, but they all use the same backend code. The only thing that differs is the platform.io.ini file and the configuration H file. That's the only thing that differs between all of the firmware. And you can see how we kind of have it organized. I'm just going to go into this because people have asked me about this before. Hopefully you guys will get it. Here's a backup of my my Z-Wave stuff labeled effing Z-Wave because I was so tired of it. I love and I hate Z-Wave. I just realized I closed my door and my handle's not installed because Z-Wave. I have to pair the new lock. I had to replace it. Anyways, we'll not try to go on home automation tangents today. But anyways, so on our GitHub, there's a unified firmware repository, and in the unified firmware repository, you'll see all these different folders. Now, I have a script here. It's actually in internal tools that goes through and it packages up everything into zip files. You can see here how it does that. So that's what that script is for. You can see here I have the old firmware up just as a reference to make sure I'm porting everything over. Anyways, but how this works is, so let's say you want to download the firmware from our GitHub, and you download this, you'll have all these extra folders. And what the script does is it will copy in the contents of this, which is the firmware folder, into the main firmware folder here. And if we look inside here, there's a platform.io.ini file and a configuration H, and sometimes there's supplementary stuff. So like this is for the 4.2 export. You can see here I've got a screenshot from Teaching Tech's thing for the BL Touch wiring on the 422 boards. But for the most part, these are only showing, or these only have these two files. So this is the only thing that differs on all the different firmware downloads on our site. That's it. It's the configuration H file and the platform.io.ini. And then, like I said, when I do a new release, I run this batch file and it packages it all up. So if I double click this, it actually prompts me to enter the new version number, and then the old one. Now I'm not going to run this because then it'll update the script or update the zip files. But that's what it does. So it'll update the zip files, rename them, and then hopefully it doesn't break the SharePoint links. But anyways, we host all our files on our company SharePoint server because it's fast and we have a ton of space. So that's how we handle the new Unified 2 firmware versus the old one. If we look at it, this is the old one, I believe. Yes, you see the old one, like it's just all these different machines, and it gets very cluttered. And this is actually already stripped down because if you notice, if you go on our GitHub and pull down Unified 1, you'll see these notes here. Use Unified 2.0 for this machine. Go to whatever. So the ones we've already ported over are on here. So you can see here the dual board configs are still stragglers here, but that's going to be changed. So my goal is to get all of these showing this. This is kind of how I'm keeping track of what's getting ported over. There's also machines like the Lulzbot Taz 5. It's not a very popular machine anymore, so we're not going to move that over. You can see here like the Zone Star not being ported over to Unified 2. The i3 Plus, just because it has that weird LCD, we're just going to leave that on Unified 1. We don't have a big customer base on that anyways, and Unified 1 works great. You know, I have to make these calls sometimes because it just gets too complicated, especially with this printer here. The i3 Plus is just a absolute shit show because of that screen, and there's no way to replace it really. So, but like the i3 will get ported over, these Tron XYs will get ported over, the Tornado, the Tarantula Pro. TAS 5, like I said, that's not getting ported over to Unified 2, and then eventually all the G-Techs and stuff. So yeah. But let me just run through these, and I haven't published this anywhere. This is literally only on my computer because I've been working on this today. So in the existing 2560 download here, you'll see we have, like, you know, our standard stuff. So these come stock with 2560s, and then we also support doing the our dual extrusion board that we sell. That's the drop in for the Crealities on the Ender 3 and the Ender 5. So that's why you see the Ender 3 and Ender 5, and I'm trying to make this as clear as you can, how to use it, and connecting the LCD to it. And then if we scroll down here, we have a couple of new options too with Unified 2 that one didn't do, and that's distinct effectors. So people have asked us where they have different extruders on each motor on the dual extrusion board to be able to set different steps. So now, even though these are uncommented, and same thing with this, they're not actually used unless you enable something else. So if you have extruder motors, like let's say you got a standard extruder and you got, you know, our tough extruder on the other, that's 95 for the stock and 463 for the tough, you would just uncomment this line, and now it will use those steps per millimeter for each extruder for E1 and E2. And same options here too, if you need to just reverse one or the other. On the back end, when you uncomment this just enables the reverse E-motor direction that you guys are used to seeing in here. And then this will do the same thing for the second one. So also in here, you can see I've got the Solvol ported over. This has already been tested and works. And like I said, I just need to do some more testing for the dual board configurations. And I'm pretty sure we're damn close on getting that done. I say we, but it's just me that does all the code. So every single piece of firmware you see come out from us has been done literally by me. That's why it takes long. And I don't have the budget to hire somebody to do dedicated firmware development. You know, it is what it is. You know, anybody's welcome. If you guys want to, you know, take a look at the code and port things over and make pull requests, by all means, go ahead. You know, it's open source. So, but yeah. All right, let's get to the questions here, and I'll add a little bit extra time because I've been talking for about 20 minutes now. Let's look at the questions here. Coffeeology is in here. I saw your order. Man. I saw your little note. I also saw somebody put an order and said Clara gets a dingo stick. We went for a walk today. It's probably why we're tired. Just hang on. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, Clara, someone thinks you're beautiful. Do you want a dingo stick? This? Yeah, she does. All right, let's see. Let's go through let's go through the chat here. I'm gonna make it easy for you. Just speak. Come on. Yeah, there you go. Good girl. All right. Wayne Bruno, I'm using your firmware on my Ender 3 of the 422. It works great. I'm having issues get prints to stick to the bed, even when using RAF. Everything seems to be level and clean. Slow your first layer speed down. That's really the best thing to do. Make sure your bed's at 60C and bump your hot end temp up a little bit. So slow it down, bump your temps up. Go up 10C on the hot end. That'll make the plastic a little more molten, so it's more sticky. And then if all else fails, we have a bunch of different solutions for bed adhesion. If you want something that just goes on top of what you have already, there's the Vision Miner stuff, which my bottle's over there by my Ender 5 Plus. That stuff works amazingly. Or you can go to like our Easy Flex system. Like I said, this is an older one, but you know, these kind of steel sheet deals with the PEI. But try messing with your speeds and your temps. I do have an article about this. It's branded with for the Easy Flex, but it's in our document and it'll work for pretty much any surface. I would highly give that a read. It's got all the little stuff that I've learned over the years in terms of getting adhesion on the bed. But let's see here. All right. Is Clara daddy's girl or mommy's girl? That's my wife's dog, which is ironic because I was the one who wanted a shepherd, and yeah, she loves my wife. She loves me, but she loves my wife more. Oh, side note. Oh, thank you, Doug. I forgot to turn on my live stream goodies here. It should come up. The chat should pop up now. Should be in the keyword, but we all know how this is. Let's see here. Yeah, so I know Doug's going STL. I know you want to convert some of your machines too, but basically what I'll do for the universal easy board, like here's your DIY information, I'll make up, like I said, a separate firmware download for that, that where you can plug stuff in, and then it'll all be on a help center article. So, you know, it'll be in the DIY section, because like I said, if you do want to do it, it's going to be a DIY, not we're going to guide you through every little step of swapping out. So definitely for someone more advanced. But I'm now starting to want to use the EasyBoard on different machines that aren't officially supported, and I've had many people request it, so I might as well put something together to try to, like, you know, point people in the right direction. Let's see here. There we go. Chat's up now. So, okay, I was just reading through. Gabe Rennick, hey, my BL Touch seems to think it's activated whether or not the pin is out or in. Check the ZN stop wiring. So you got the 2 pins that go to your ZN stop. Just reverse the pins, because you probably have the ground wire going to the signal pin and the signal pin going to the ground. So your board always thinks it's always probably you said activated, so I'm assuming it probably thinks it's triggered. I believe that's a low signal one. But either way, it's probably because your signal pin on the board is going to the ground wire on the BL Touch when it needs to go to the signal line. And that's typically the white and black wire. Usually white is the signal line and black is the ground line. Just flip them in the plug. So it's a common thing because there's different pinouts for different boards. Sometimes the signal's on the left, the ground's on the right. Sometimes the ground's on the left and the signal's on the right. It really depends, but just flip them. Let's see here. I need to top off, though. I haven't had any caffeine today. So, I see other people talking about putting the boards and stuff. My ideal thing to do if you're going to swap, and really any board, if you're going to swap a board into a machine that isn't like a drop-in ready, like for our board or for, you know, MKS boards, SKR, etc., and it's a 2020 extrusion-based printer, just print a new case and bolt that sucker right onto the case. That's what I'm doing. Or just get rid of the stock electronics housing for it and bolt everything to the frame. If you guys want something even easier, what you could do, if you don't want to print a bunch of parts, and I've done this before, I did this with my CR10 that's behind me, is you pick up a piece of melamine, like a board, like laminated board, bolt the damn printer to the board, and then just use some nylon standoffs and just put all your boards into the wood. Then you're not printing adapter pieces, and you just basically have this big work area underneath the printer that you can affix things to. I've done that a few times with different machines. There's one in my office that's like that. I've done a couple of just random one-off builds. But that's always an option too. You know, you don't always have to mount the board in the same spot, because if you go outside of that restriction, then it's really up to you. You know, you might be making more cables, you might be extending things, but you know, that's all part of the process when you're doing something custom. You know, it's just how it is. Let's see here. Michael Mearsman says, trying to print a wear-resistant part using nylon filament, having a hard time with the part sticking. Do you think Vision Miner adhesive would do the trick? So, nylon, you should treat it like ABS. Higher bed temperature and an enclosure. So we print, we like I said, Aaron, we're not at the point where we're ready to do like bulk production for people. But when we've been tuning in nylon, the enclosure helps a lot because nylon likes to warp, and we do use a Vision Miner on our PEI sheets, like our flex plates. So if you don't have an enclosure, get an enclosure. If you don't want to buy an enclosure, you can do what I've done in a pinch, which is you make a cardboard box, but do not run it unattended. And speaking of enclosures, I have my Under 5 Plus one here from 3D Upfitters. It's not assembled, so that will be a thing for another day. But definitely get an enclosure. I've seen a lot of people, and this is actually probably cheaper and easier, is you get that like 1-inch thick pink foam board you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's, and you just make a box out of it. You know, make like the top, the sides, the back, and then have the front just sit on there so you can actually get into the printer. You know, if you're not doing a ton of ABS printing, something like that, more temporary, would be cheap and fine. I opted for actual enclosures on the printers that I need them on, just because it's nicer, it's more permanent, and I also don't want people coming in here and seeing pink like boxes made out of insulation board in our shop. It just doesn't look professional. Same thing with the cardboard. So, but you're definitely going to need an enclosure. You want to keep down the drafts. You want to keep in higher ambient temperature for nylon, just like ABS. Let's see here. All right, I'm back on track. I'm waiting for chat to jump. There it goes. There it goes. Hang on. And let me go back to where we were. Okay, now we're back. Cool. Drew Singer, how often do I do new releases? It really depends. Sometimes I get on a firmware kick where I've got extra, I actually have time to sit down and do it. Other times a business requires me to do business things, which takes away my development time. I do like doing the code, but it's, unless there's something that's a major bug that needs to be fixed, things get added to it and updated as I get time to. It's been, I'd say at least once a month is what we're looking at right now. I just did a release a couple days ago. That was some new printer additions and some fixes and feature additions. So, but as soon as I do a GitHub release, we do use the GitHub releases. I have Zapier set up to send it out to our site, and then our site will then send it out to all of our social media accounts. So if you guys keep an eye on the news section of our site or our Twitter, our Instagram, Facebook page, that kind of stuff, those all get blasted out within an hour of me doing a release. So, and then if you're using our Easy Board with the Easy Firmware site, after I do a GitHub release, I'll go and update the Easy Firmware server. So that usually has it within a few minutes. So yeah, it really depends. Hugo says, I've got under 5 with Crowley Ultra Base. I was told this is a no-no for PETG. PETG is a no-no for a lot of surfaces if you don't put down a barrier. Like PETG will bond to glass, PETG will bond to PEI, it'll bond to polycarbonate surfaces like our Easy Mat. It's just not a very forgiving material because if you smush it too much, it's gonna take chunks with it. I've seen people pull pieces of glass. I've had pieces of glass pull off when I used to use glass years ago. But something like Vision Miner or like a PVA glue stick or even hairspray, you want something between the PETG and the surface you're printing on. And it also should note that if your nozzle is really too low, you could push through that barrier and then it's contacting the bed anyway. So be very careful with your Z height when you're running PETG because it does like to bond to a lot of surfaces. So one thing I have had people do, and we've done here, if you don't want to run the risk of PETG bonding to something that will break, is on our Easy Flex systems, the back side of the plate is bare. If you put Vision Miner on the back side of the plate and print on that bare steel plate, but with Vision Miner on it, the PETG will not bond to the steel. And the Vision Miner will keep it stuck down, even though there's no PEI or anything. You can use a Vision Miner on the back of our plates without any surface on it, because it will stick it down. I've done that a few different times. So, all right, moving on. Joseph Wonder wants to ask, do we use Octoprint? And do you only use a web interface, or do you have a plugin for a touchscreen? We use Octoprint on every single machine here. There's a Pi sitting right here for this one. If you see it right there, it's one of our older Easy Pis when we were still doing the printed cases. That's how old this machine is. Yeah, there's a Pi on every single machine. Most of the time I'll hit the printers or the Pi's IP directly, but we do have a software setup called OctoFarm that aggregates all of our stuff. I can actually show that to you guys here because there's really nothing confidential on here. Let me open this up in my browser here that I use for streaming. Let's see, main monitor here. So this is how we manage our farm. I do have an issue where some of them like disconnect. You can see some of them are showing offline, like resync, and like this one I know is disconnected. But like some of them are just showing offline. See, now it's showing offline or online. But yeah, we use this. At the very least, I like this because what I can do is actually pull up. I can actually pull up the interfaces easier. Like this one's printing. I'm on the latest version of their software, but you know it's free. It's open source. What are you gonna do? Unless something broke. There it goes. Awaiting WebSocket. There you go. You can see it shows printing. But at the very least, what I usually do is I'll come in here, and you can like upload prints right from here. And you can see this printer's camera looking right at me. This is a really crappy camera. It was when the human malware was at its peak, and I needed cameras, and I couldn't get Logitechs, and we didn't have easy cams. So, anyways, I can do all my stuff from here. But usually, what I'll do, and what I like this software is, I can just hit this little button here, and it'll take me right to the actual web interface for that printer. And I actually have a macro setup since all my logins are the same. We use our EasyPi image. I just press a little macro button, and it logs me in. Now, this is an older Pi 3. You can see how long it's taking to load. Like, for comparison, this one's running a Pi 4. And this one's still coming up. This is running a Pi 4, so it's a lot faster. You can see this one. This is the Ender 5 Plus, and this is doing the PSU case. And it's a little dark because the windows here, it's blown out the exposure. But yeah, there's still. This is all we use. Is we use the Pis for every single machine here. Yeah, my only complaint with this software is occasionally, like, you know, we'll have machines that'll just show us offline, but it's still better than nothing. You can see it tracks all of our statistics, like active, complete, idle. You can see there's a bunch of print jobs that are finished that need to be harvested. You can see the printers in here running. So like I said, Barney's running, my Ender 5 Plus is running, that kind of stuff. So if I go to the list here, I can pull it up. Barney's one of the only printers I have that still has that older, like, Raspberry Pi camera that's on a ribbon cable, and it wasn't working earlier. Oh, it is working now. Okay. But you can see Barney's making the mount for Bertha. So, yeah, Barney's acceleration is pretty high. I don't know if you can tell, but Barney, I have his acceleration set pretty high because it's a tiny little printer. It's like a 160 by 160 bed. So it jerks around pretty good, but it gets prints done quick. So anyways, yeah, love Octoprint. We have Octoprint kits that are pre-set up. If you want to just buy one that works out of the box, you can even put your Wi-Fi info in and we'll pre-configure it for you. You can also DIY it. Go to octoprint.org. If you don't buy a kit from us, make sure when you buy the parts to build an Octoprint setup that you buy a power supply. Not a phone charger, an actual power supply. You need at least a 3 amp 5 volt power supply to run a Raspberry Pi correctly. The mistake a lot of people do is they will buy a phone charger, and that's a charger. It doesn't just continuously output voltage. Chargers have some circuitry in them to kind of throttle it down as the phone gets full. You don't want that with a Raspberry Pi. So you want an actual power supply when you're powering a Raspberry Pi. Our kits all come with a 3 amp power supply with them. So, and we have, I think we're out of stock on the 2 gig boards. We have 4 gig Pi 4 boards. and we usually have the 2 gigs. But it's all pre-configured, pre-flash. We power them all on, make sure they work. And like I said, if you want us to pre-configure the Wi-Fi, so you get it, you plug it in, it pops on your network. That's something we do, and there's no extra charge to have us pre-configure the Wi-Fi for you. But you can also configure the Wi-Fi yourself. There's a video on the channel on how to do that, and there's a guide. So, Dimitri asks, is this a precursor to the EasyBoard Pro? Oh, like the DIY geared firmware? No. This is just, I want to put an EasyBoard in here, and while it'll take me more time to get that framework built for, like, you know, a universal config, it's going to save me time in the long run. Because if there's other machines I want to put that are more custom built machines and not like a more standard machine, I'll be able to use it in the future. So it's more or less something that I'm going to use for myself, but I'm also then going to share back out to everybody. But I do want to be clear, the DIY put it in any printer thing, that will not be covered under the technical support. That'll be here's a little bonus if you want to go down this path and, you know, have the patience and skills to do that. But let's see here. Hugo, as a follow-up for PETG printing, Bowden or direct drive? Either one. Either one. Doesn't matter. Nemo Griff, hey, you got the locksmith school in a box. Oh, yeah, I did. My wife got this for me for Christmas. So I'm gonna learn how to pick some locks, because I've been watching the Lockpicking Lawyer for years, and my wife was like, couldn't figure out what to get me, but I think that's a really good gift. I've gotten past the 2 pins. I'm stuck on the 3, but I gotta just practice. So, let's see, where are we at? Oh yeah, Joseph wondered, that's a good tip. If you have a glass bed, let it preheat for 5 minutes first. Yes, so that way the heat can actually get up through the glass. Glass is not a very good thermal conductor. Hugo's asking when we're going to get the EasyFlex for 180 by 180. I'm not sure. We're dealing with a lot of different, like, shipping delays and stuff and production delays. So it's, when we get it, we get it. I'm not sure. Aaron and I are having an inventory meeting tomorrow to go over all that stuff. Yeah, it's still a shipping and manufacturing is still an absolute disaster right now. But we're trying to keep things in stock. Dominic Versailles was asking about, I think you asked that before, I was talking about enclosures. Would it be worth the trouble to make a cheap enclosure out of foam core, or should I just pay someone to print it for me? If you're going to do it more than once, I'd say then make a cheap enclosure. But if you need something to print ABS or ASA, we do that. You can do the contact us link at the top and select print from for the department, and then you send on your STLs and put your material color, that kind of stuff, type, etc. into there, and then we'll quote you out. Let's see here. We're up. Chat jumped again. All right, we're back though. I found my location here. Redline, what are some things you have to do to make a board work even though it's not supported? So when, like, and this is a good question, because this will hopefully explain why we are like, this is what's supported by this port. So the main reason is we have all these printers, and they're factory, for the most part, for all the major stuff, you know, end stops, motors, you know, that kind of thing. They're all standard, and we know that they're consistent most of the time from machine to machine. So if I buy an Ender 3, I know that the motors are going to go a certain direction, and, you know, the Z is going to go a certain direction. My end stops are going to be a certain logic, that kind of stuff. The problem is when you get into custom builds, I have no idea what end stop you're using, how it's wired. Is it normally open? Is it normally closed? How is your motor wired? If I, you know, tell it to go left with an Ender 3 config, but it's not actually an Ender 3, is a motor actually going to go left, or is it going to go right? So you have your end stop inversions, if you have a normally open or normally closed switch. You have your motor inversions to, you know, tell it if, you know, X is going to go left or right, Y is going to go front to back, Z is going to go up or down. These are all variables that have to be accounted for. So when you start getting into machines that are custom built, where motors have been swapped, end stops have been swapped, or it's a completely custom machine, I have no idea to know what those variables would be. So if I go, oh yeah, this just works, and then they get it and it doesn't, it's because I don't know their settings. So that's why the Easy Board is not sold as like a universal board. And like I said before, you can use any board in any printer. You just have to then set the firmware up and wire everything correctly for your particular setup. So, you know, like, even though I'm doing a conversion on this AlphaWise U10, how I wire things up, or maybe I've swapped an end stop switch. Maybe my original switch was normally open, but I only had it normally closed on hand, and you can mix and match them, but then you have to update the firmware to reflect the hardware changes. So that's what makes it difficult. That's why, like, I can't imagine trying to support that, because it would take so much time, especially if you have people that aren't familiar with the code. It would take so much time that the board would end up being $200 to $300 just to cover the support time involved, because you could easily spend 3 to 4 hours trying to help somebody that gets their stuff, and that's assuming they have everything wired correctly. That's a whole nother different thing, because, you know, if somebody wires it all up and they think they have it correct, but it's not, then you're troubleshooting the actual hardware on the machine, the wiring, the switches, that kind of stuff. It's just not something we want to get into. Yeah, that's about it. Like, there's just a lot of different variables, and then going even deeper, maybe they have a different pulley size. I know Creality uses the same size pulleys on the X and Y, and they use, for the most part, the same lead screws on their Z. And I know what those steps per millimeter are. I don't know what, you know, Joe random guy put on his printer to drive the belts. Only he does. You know, a 16-tooth pulley uses different steps per millimeter than a 20-tooth pulley. You know, and then most people do use GT2 style belts, or 2GT. I've seen them reference a bunch of different ways. But there's all these different variables that come into play, and I don't know what they are because I didn't build the printer. So that's really what it comes down to. You know, you get people that swap out. You know, there's also motors. Are they using a 0.8 degree or a 0.9 degree or 1.8? That changes the steps per millimeter. So you've got, just for steps per millimeter on X, things that can influence that and change it is the motor step angle, 0.9 versus 1.8. The pulley that they're using, how many tooth it is, and the type of belt they're using. Those are all things that I have no idea. And to be completely honest, if somebody is building a custom machine, this is stuff they have to become familiar with in order to set their firmware up. Like, you shouldn't be, unless you are willing to put the time and effort into understanding all this and figuring this out, you shouldn't be like swapping boards out. I've seen so many people that, you know, some random guy on Reddit or Facebook tell them, oh yeah, I'm going to put a SKR in my Ender 5 Plus. And then they have no idea what they're doing, because you have to put all your motor directions in and the inversions. You have to put your steps per millimeter for your X, Y, Z, and E. You have to set your end stop logic correctly. Like, there's all these different variables that go into making it. And when you guys download the unified firmware, I've already done all that on the back end. So when you uncomment what printer you have, that sets a multitude of other variables automatically, because I've already sat down and figured those out. So yeah, that's the thing. There's just too many variables to account for when you're doing a universal board. And there is the expectation that if somebody is doing that, which is a very advanced thing, that they need to be aware of what they should set for their machine. So, yeah. So hopefully I can put together something to make that process a little simpler, but there's still going to be stuff that needs to be set, you know, based on the printer. I can give a baseline, a good starting point, but, you know, like, I can't remember what steps per millimeter is, and usually what I'll do is I'll tell this to move 10 and see what it moves. If it doesn't move 10, then if it's over, I need to reduce my steps per millimeter. If it's under, I need to increase it. But typically for like the for the firmware settings, like I said, you have the type of belt you're using, which is like the teeth spacing and everything. How many teeth are on this pulley? And then what type of motor? If you're using a 1.8 degree, 0.9 degree, and then what stepping mode your driver's in. Now, luckily, since I'm using the easy board, I know I'm going to be in 1/16 stepping. But if you got somebody that's using like an SKR board where you can put different drivers in and set the jumper configurations to be in different stepping modes, then again, that changes the steps per millimeter again. So, yeah. And that's also assuming you know where everything is in Marlin. Let me see here. George, I have not replied to any of the, I have not, what's it called? I have not replied to any of the stream emails, including the giveaways. I will be getting those tonight. So I see someone asking about that. That's why no one's got a reply. That kind of stuff falls on the low priority side of things when we've got a lot of other stuff going on. Just how it is. All right, let's see here. Digo, I've been having some issues with getting my BL Touch set up on Ender 5 Pro with a 422 board. Any links or guides you can point me to help troubleshoot? Teaching Tech. Teaching Tech did a full video on those boards and how to wire everything up and covered some of the firmware stuff. If you haven't looked at him, he does a lot of good tutorials, and he's a teacher, so he's very... I think he's very good at relaying information in a fairly easy to understand way. The important thing to know on that board is there's multiple ways to connect because I am familiar with those boards. There's multiple ways you can connect the BL Touch. Creality sells a kit with the little LCD adapter board, and you can use that with those boards. But you have to specify the pin, and I don't know the pin number off the top of my head, but there's also a header on the board, though, for a BL Touch, and that pin is different. So if you use the LCD adapter board, you use the 3 pins on the adapter board, and then the other 2 go into your ZN stop. But if you connect it to the 5-pin header on the board, there you have to change your ZN stop pin and your signal pin for the servo control for the BL Touch. So it gets very complicated. Whereas, like, compared to an easy ABL, it literally connects to the ZN stop, and you're up and running in a few minutes. In terms of firmware setup, there's no guesswork there. It's already been done for you. Again, like we were saying with the universal type stuff and putting things into custom printers, I don't know how people have things connected. You know, only they do. So that kind of stuff. You know, like I said, that board has 2 different ways to connect the BL Touch, and it changes the pins that it uses depending on which one it goes to. Now, if Creality actually cared and they want to make things easy for their customers, they could make their own firmware that has, you know, oh, we're using the LCD header, uncomment that. Or using the onboard one, uncomment that. And here's how you connect this to that. But I wouldn't hold my breath on that. 3D Maker Hub, I like this question. What are some consumables that you should always have extra of? Even before TH3 was a thing, I always kept nozzles, thermistors, heater cartridges, filament, obviously. Just, you know, make sure you're not. I'm one to talk about storing things improperly. I have open rolls here, but I usually go through my rolls within a few months, anyways. So, but in terms of like stuff, definitely nozzles, wheels, thermistors, heater cartridges. Man, I am blanking out aside from those because there's other stuff I usually keep on hand. I always keep a screw assortment on hand. Those are always helpful. Screw assortment, T-nut assortment. You know, if you got multiple of the same machine, might not hurt to have an extra board on hand in case one dies. An extra LCD in case one dies. It also helps to have extra parts for just troubleshooting. Like, man, I'm having this weird issue. I don't know if it's my board. Oh, well, I have an extra one. Swap the board out. Did the problem go away? Oh, it did. Okay, so there's something wrong with the board. That kind of stuff. I mean, it wouldn't hurt to have like an extra motor or 2 on hand. I don't have motors fail too often, but again, when you're trying to get a job out and it's midnight and you can't get stuff here, it's always nice to have some extra parts on hand to even just troubleshoot to find out what the problem is. And usually there's a way then, if you're crafty enough, to get your machine up and running to get your stuff done. Yeah. Let's see here. Dr. Seto, instead of closing programs, reopening them later, couldn't you just switch users? I'm not having multiple user accounts on here. That seems like a pain. Redline, you guys being so busy, are you ever going to revisit getting a branded printer? I want to start looking at that like Q2 of next year. So, Kobeer, yeah, I did get your email. Like I said, I got your guys' emails here. But I haven't had time to get back to them just because it's Monday and it's crazy. And I tried to stay off my computer when we were off for the holidays. Let's see here. John Carby, I've been playing around with EasyABL setting the firmware, trying to fix the issue where the nozzle is too close to the bed on the periphery of the bed on larger prints. Periphery, that means like the rear, I'm assuming? Periphery, let's Google that. I think that's rear. Oh, the outer limit. Outer limits. Any tips? You can try probing out more by reducing the edge setting. Or if your edge setting is already low, increasing it. So what that does is, obviously the probe can't probe the entire physical bed because of where it's mounted. Your nozzle can't move outside the bounds of the bed. But you can try checking, and if it's only on one side, and this is going to sound stupid, but it got me for a while, is I had an issue where I was always closer on, I think, the rear and higher in the front of my bed. And what happened is my belt was over tightened. So as the bed moved, the belt pulled down on the bed and skewed the results. So check that your belts aren't over tightened. Start with that. But play with that edge setting. And I got to pull up the firmware. I don't know what board or printer you're using, so that would be helpful. But I believe we have a setting for the edge compensation, or is it not in the new one? On Unified 1, I thought we had something in there. I might not have added it back in on 2 yet. No, it's just enabled by default. So you could try if you ruled out the mechanical stuff in your sorry, here come the odds. I got up early today at like 6, so that's early for me. What you could do is if you go into the source code for the firmware, and this is for Unified 2. I'm assuming you're using Unified 2. Most people should be using it. But in the configuration _backend.h file, if we scroll down, the line numbers might be slightly different, but you see this option right here, extrapolate beyond grid. What could be happening is it's overcompensating. What this does is it will use the mesh data that it has to make a best guess as to what the bed looks like outside of the grid. And if this is overcompensating, that can cause what you're seeing. So if you pull down, you open your firmware up in VS Code, all you need to do is just do that and disable that option. And that will turn that off. So I should, since I'm already working on a new release, I will just code something else into to toggle this on or off. But for the most part, this option works very well and it does a good job at guessing. But there are, every machine is different. There are machines where that setting might cause problems. So there could be something like that that you're experiencing. Yeah, so hopefully that's helpful. Coffeeology, do you feel dry boxes are needed for PLA? So yes and no. I've been finding that, and why I've been switching to US-made PLA, but I've been finding that US-made PLA fares a lot better in terms of not cracking and breaking than the Chinese brands in general. This is a generalization. There's always exceptions to the rule, but I found in general, and like, it's not that humid in here. It's like 30%, so it's pretty low, especially in the winter. I found that the Chinese filament, when it's been out for a while, starts to like to crack. I don't know if you guys have had that where rolls they'll be on your printer and they'll just snap, which is really annoying. I have not had that happen with any of the US brands I use. I use Coex a lot. I use Atomic. I actually just ordered a bunch of cool colors from Atomic. Printed solid. toner plastics. What's the last one that I usually use? Or I use it for specialty stuff. Proto pasta. I haven't. Sorry. Probably just made a bunch of people yawn. I've had issues where the Chinese stuff, as it sits out, starts getting brittle and cracks. I have not had that issue with the U.S. stuff. I think having it in a dry box would probably help mitigate that. I was talking to Aaron about this. He heard that some of the Chinese manufacturers, I think Sunlu is one of them, they mix in hips with the PLA to make it go further. So basically they use hips pellets in addition to the PLAs. I don't know what the percentage is, but basically they can get more rolls and more material out of the same amount of PLA pellets because they're thinning it out. Whereas like the US stuff seems to be made with less filler. I don't know if that's the right word, but in general, I've had less issues with PLA cracking when it's a US brand versus a Chinese brand. But again, there could be exceptions to every rule, but I'm just sharing with you my experiences. And that's why I've been paying a couple extra bucks a roll, for the plastic to get it from the US, because I've had more consistency with the prints and I've had less issues with them cracking. And when you're running a print farm and you have, 40 something machines, it's a huge pain in the ass to have to go and re input the filament because it cracked because it sat out overnight. Anyways, let's see here. Where were we at? We got that. Tips with printing print tree with a 0.2 nozzle. On an Ender 3 Pro, BL Touch, Microswift Direct Drive, hot end, and upside down. And upside down PI metal sheet with Magajigu. Well, I mean, what problem are you trying to solve? That's the real question here. I'm gonna tell you right now, the smaller nozzles, like the 0.2, 0.25s, you're gonna have to print a lot slower than you think you would be able to, just because that hole is so tiny. Flyless says, I finally got my BL Touch working on my CR10S, but I had to hot glue the wiring in the correct way. Now the LCD won't come on. Did I screw up the motherboard? Well, my first question is, how do you know it's working if the LCD is not coming on? Is the board responding over serial? The number one thing I see people doing to damage boards in general, not just ours, but in general, with the BL Touches, is they miswire it and they end up shorting out the 5-volt rail on the board, which can spike the processor's regulator and kill the processor on the board. I'm just wondering, I need more details, because it doesn't make sense if you say you got the BL Touch working, but the LCD won't come on. How are you able to qualify that it's working? Richard, as much as I would like to get into home automation, I'm not going to go down that route today. But feel free to ping me in our Discord. We have a home automation section. I need more of this. Coffee Allergy decided to support Gina on Patreon. Awesome. We send her money every single month. When you buy an Easy Pie kit from us, a portion of that sale goes towards Gina directly. We literally send her a chunk of money. We total up everything. So we total up how many pies were sold at the end of the month, multiply it by the number we agreed on, and then we send it to her. So it's a decent chunk of change every month. So, but I felt it was the right thing to do. I mean, that's her full-time thing. So it's only fair that we're selling a product that uses her software. It's the same thing. Like, we donate money to Marlin because we use Marlin firmware as a base for our firmware. So, I'm going to keep doing that as long as we are financially able to. So, Robert Thompson, isn't Barney one of my originals? I see we have someone that pays attention. Yes, Barney was the second printer I bought. That was a Tron XY-100. It was an acrylic frame printer, and it's basically a custom machine at this point. The whole frame's been replaced. It didn't have a heated bed. I added a heated bed. But yeah, it started out. It was my second machine. I will never get rid of that printer, ever. Let's see. Topic Waffle, do you curl your G-code, or does Octofarm handle that? No, we just upload it. I gave up on using curl. We just upload the files. I have a G-code folder. Let's see. Flyless said the BL Touch worked, then it came with... I'm assuming by work you mean it turned on, like the power. I would say that you might have shorted the board out. If you had the wiring incorrect, you might have shorted the board out, and it's probably damaged. Um, yeah. Chat jumped again. Hang on, let me get back to where hang on. Give me 1 second. Here's what I hate to do this, but I really have to take a restroom break, so I'll be right back, and we're gonna go to at least 3:30 today. So things are running smooth. So post questions, and I'll be right back. I really apologize. I went before I started, but I haven't. I guess I drank a decent amount. Anyways, um, give me like 5 minutes. I'll be right back, and we're gonna have a little bit longer one today. Because looks like things are getting. I didn't realize orders were already caught up, which is why I originally said at the beginning of the stream that it's going to be short. But it looks like my team's got everything handled, so we can have a little bit longer stream day. I'll be right back. Okay. Totally forgot that my inside handle for this was right here. Oh man. Okay, we should be good for a while now. I have like the bladder of a pregnant woman apparently. Dear God. Oh, you guys saw me struggling with that, didn't you? Oh boy. Okay, let's get back to this. Damn. Okay. Let's go back here. Let's see. All right, let me go up, let me go up, let me go up. We were back here, home automation, Barney original, supporting Gina. Richard needs some stuff for automation. Get some PIR sensors and automate lighting. It's a convenience thing. Anyways, let's see. If anybody wants to save the ultrabrace from an artillery X1, does anyone try to remove the glued metal stuff on the bottom of this? So do not try to do that. The artillery Sidewinder X1 is a glass bed. There's no metal. So what we did on ours is we put a flex plate system on top of that. But that bed is just glass. I'm not a fan of it. I don't know why they did it. That's like stuff TiVo did. I know there's like a crossover with people from TiVo and artillery, so I'm not surprised they did that. But yeah. Tommy, how much lead time do you need on the red scroll print? Are you asking us if we're going to print it? Post in the chat and at TH3 Studio so it shows up highlighted. Or, yeah. Oh, wait, I just realized I'm in the chat as my personal account. Yeah, whatever. Not long. I mean, it is a short answer if you're asking us. It took, I think it was I want to say it was like a 9-hour print. But I did it at like, no, I don't think it was that long. It was definitely more than 6, but I don't think it was 8. Hang on, let me see. I think I have logging set up. I don't know if I have logging set up still. Let me see. Anyways, Nemo Griff, I'm part of the lockpicking subreddit. I can give you goodies to extend the fun. I'm always down. Lockpicking's always interested me just because I like knowing how things work. And I understand how locks work. I like hacking things. I do not partake on Reddit though, but you can catch me in our Discord server if you want to chat. If you guys ever want to just like hang out multiple times a week, I'll just pop my camera on. I'm in Discord just hanging out, like working on stuff. So yeah, here, I'll send you the link here. Anybody's welcome to join. We got over 3,600 people last time I checked in that server. There we go. Let's see. Let's get back to the questions. I appreciate everybody stopping by. We only lost like 10 people. So, Joseph wonder, every time I print something large, my nozzle slaps the leftmost binder clip. Is there a better way to hold my bed on? Honestly, man, just replace the glass. Go to a flex plate system or just a sticker on the bed. I will not go back to clipping stuff on my beds. But when I did use glass to get around that, you guys ever see those like silicone? I mean, I have a tiny one here from a pie case, but like the little silicone thermal pads, you can get ones that are bigger, but you're going to spend like 15, 20 bucks on them. I would put those underneath the glass to hold it down because they're tacky enough where you can still take it off. But I would not recommend doing it. I would honestly just, like, we have our Easy Flex system. They're very fairly priced. Once you go to a flex system, it's hard to go back. But I did used to use, before flex systems became ubiquitous, I did used to use like little thermal pads, like they make them in big squares. That's something you could check out. Trying to think of anything else. No, that's the only thing I use to keep those on. But binder clips are so 2019. R-Mills, I use you for background noise at work. Oh, thanks. I'm background noise. Gato77 has two Ender 5 pluses here. Need to expand the farm. Another Ender 5 plus or another Ender CR you'd recommend. So here's what I would say. Do you need the build volume? If you do and you like it, I like the Ender 5 plus. I converted the LCD to our conversion kit, and it's got an easy board in it. The only thing I didn't like about the Ender 5 plus was the original stock power supplies were terrible. They're supposedly shipping with Meanwells now, so that's a really good upgrade. But if you don't need the build volume, I would say buy two Ender 3s instead of an Ender 5 Plus. But if you do need the build volume, then I would say just if you like the Ender 5 Plus, then go with another Ender 5 Plus. But if you do have jobs that will fit on the smaller machines, you can get more work done with two Ender 3s than you can with one Ender 5 Plus. So that's something to think about here. Most of our machines are in the Ender 3 size, the 220 by 220, 235 by 235 bed size. But we do have a lot of 300 by 300s, and I have the 400 by 400 here, and then my Ender 5 Plus was the 350 by 350. So it really depends on what you're printing. Because I would rather, if I'm not printing large stuff, like we usually aren't, I would rather have multiple small printers instead of, one or two big ones. Because I can get more done in the same amount of time with multiple smaller ones than a couple big ones. Would you prefer Cartesian over Core XY when price is not an issue? I honestly, I don't think it makes a difference. The only time Core XY is theoretically better is when you want to print fast. Now, I also have run Cartesian machines fast. I think it's all preference. I think Core XY, not HBot. There are some printers out there that say they're Core XY, but they're actually HBot, like the Ender 4. Don't buy an Ender 4. We had one, and I took it to parts because I was tired of dealing with it. But anyways, Core XY is a solid kinematic system. It's just a little more complicated to put together, and it's at normal print speeds, like 60 to 80 millimeters a second. In my opinion, I've seen Cartesian do just as good. A well-tuned Cartesian machine versus a well-tuned Core XY. I could print, like a Benchy or something on both of them and show them to you guys and be like, which one's a Core XY? And you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So it's all personal preference. The nice thing, the one thing I like about the printers, there's so many different ones. If there's one that's in your price range and it's got halfway decent reviews, go ahead and buy it. Play with it. Find out what you like. What I like may be completely different from what you like. I have different preferences. Like I have friends of mine that they love direct drive. I'm indifferent. I have both. Yeah. Louise, just made in here. I have a original CR10, the V1. Pulling my hair out, trying to figure out what mainboard I should upgrade to. So, in my opinion, these are the ones we sell, because I sell what we'll actually use. Is the 4.2? Well, wait, the 427 board is not supported by the CR10. Basically, you have the SKR E3s, and you have our Easy board. But our Easy board is better built. It comes with tech support, and it's $120. I only think we have a few of those left. I do have more on order. But last time I checked, because I was going to put a new one in Bertha, but I opted to, I'm going to refurbish one in my box of ones that people have killed, because I couldn't justify taking a new one. I'm checking our site right now. I know we're low on them. I just don't know how low. And it'll probably be a couple of weeks before we get more. So I have 6 in stock right now. And according to my system, it says stock will last 2 days. So... but yeah, everybody feel free to chime in. Easy board or SKR for CR10? I'm biased. I say Easy board. I think the 422 not the 422. I think the 427 might work on it, but I haven't tested it, and I don't have firmware for it. But again, like I said earlier at the beginning of the stream, you can technically use any board and any printer as long as you know what you're doing with the wiring and the hookups. The only thing with the 427 board I would be concerned about on a CR10 is the current going through the board, because running 12 volt versus 24, you've got roughly double the amperage going through all the terminals and stuff, and Creality has never sold it as of talking right now, and the information I have, they've never sold it as a board for a CR10. And And I don't know if that's because it can't handle the amperage, but I've only done load testing at 24 volts on it. And for the Ender 3, Ender 5, that kind of load, it was fine, but the traces were getting warm, but not anywhere where it's like, this is concerning. But I could see that potentially being a problem with the 12 volt machines because they do pull more amps. So one of the benefits to machines going 24 volts over 12 is you can use thinner wire because there's less amps. Same amount of watts usually, but less amps because you have higher voltage. So there's a trade-off there. Like we carry the 427 boards, but we do not sell them as CR10 boards because I haven't tested that with that kind of load on it. And Creality doesn't sell it as that type of board. Let's see here. Philip Hamilton, I have a dodgy A8 copy and it's about to go through a window and it won't print a circle. That's what my my Ender 4 was doing because that HBOT design, it was just too much flex. Yeah. Yeah, anyways. I'm sorry, I have no idea how to, I'm just gonna call you Raj because I don't know how to pronounce your name. Just got me the Easy Flex system texture. Can I stick the Easy Mat behind that one and flop on the bed? No problem. Yeah, you can stick a Easy Mat on the back of the plate and flip between the two. Yeah, you can do that. Luis, Unify 2. I didn't know there was a newer version. Can the V1 mainboard on a CR10 run it? Will it fit? Yes. That is the... If it's a CR10 version 1, that you probably don't have a model number on the board. It's probably one of your OG boards that was just black or green with the 1284p. Yes, we have it. That would be the Melzy download on our site. So uf2.th3dstudio.com. And you do need a bootloader. I forgot to answer, but someone asked, does Unify 2 still need a bootloader? Yes. If your board does not have a bootloader, you still need to flash the bootloader. But if we go to uf2.th3dstudio.com, you see this is how we have it organized now. So the printer and then what board it uses. So even though this says V11X, you still have a V1 board that would be covered in this. And this would be the download you would need. And there's details here. You can see here, these boards were originally black or green with no version number, and later ones were marked with 112, 113, 114, 115. All these boards use the same firmware. And there's directions here. There's a link here to the VS Code setup guide. There's also a video, but I literally have step-by-step directions here on how to get VS Code up and running. And then if for some reason you can't, the auto upload doesn't work, we also have a guide here on how to set your COM port manually. So it's all very well documented. And yes, you can upgrade to Unified 2 on that board. Even though it's really old, it's still supported. Apparently I've solved Parabolic Labs' question. I think he was asking... Oh, it's a flow issue. Yeah. Let's see here. Where were we at? There we go. Unified 2. Any ideas if there's a maximum deviation a BL Touch can compensate for? Theoretically, there's no maximum that any ABL sensor can compensate for, but you do want to have your bed as flat as possible because the more out of skew it is, or as level as possible, the more out of skew it is, the more it's going to work to the compensation. You can get weird artifacting on your machine, or on your print, I should say. So, yeah. Jose's asking, my Ender 3 V2 came with 102 firmware. Which firmware should I install now? I don't have a BL Touch. We have firmware for the Ender 3 V2, and the Ender 3 V2 does differ a little bit because of the LCD screen, and I'll show you that real quick. So we've changed out the LCD screen on our Ender 3 V2 because this thing is terrible. It's very limited. It looks pretty, and that's it. It just looks pretty. So when you pull this off, so this locks in, you pull this off and disconnect the cable. There's 4 screws here, which you can see. This is in my development board because I still do testing with this, with our firmware. But you take these 4 screws out, and then usually I'll use a flathead. And you just kind of go in at the side here. Here, let me switch over to this camera here. And it just kind of pops off like that. And if you see here, there's an SD slot right here. And you put the firmware for the SD or for the LCD into an SD card. It has to be formatted with 4096 byte allocation units. It's also on our firmware page to do that. You put the SD card in here with the firmware, you turn it on, it'll go through a flashing process, and then the LCD firmware is updated. Then at that point, you can update the firmware on the board. So the stock firmware is okay, but we do have one out from us if you want to try that out. You could always flash the board and the LCD back to Creality's one from their site if you don't like it for some reason. But I will show this because I did this to mine. I'm starting to document more of my little side projects that I do for my own stuff. If you guys notice, I just want to point out some things in our help center here. So on our guide section, so this is our help center. You can get here by going to support.th3dstudio.com. So if I just type that in, it'll take me right to the help center. Now, downloads is where you'll find the Unified 2 and the 1. STL files are also in here. So, like, this was just a little project I did that I was like, you know what, I'm going to post these out here for people who want them. But I also have, under the guides section, there's DIY guides. So you'll find, like, my little side projects here. So, like, the Anycubic Mega Zero V1 heated bed upgrade. This is kind of just like a brain dump of here's what I did and, you know, pictures of the finished project. So, you know, it's not for simple, like, it's not exactly step by step, but it's like, here's the details on the project. You know, gives you enough information. If you know what you're, you know, have enough skills to know what you're doing on basic things, then, you know, it'll be helpful information. But one of the other things are the LCD conversion for the Ender 3, and you see upgrades and printer information. So right here, if we see Ender 3 V2 swapping to the Creality LCD for more features, here's the LCD screen, here's the mount. So we carry the screen here, and here's the mount for it. And if we look here, I have details here. Once the LCD is swapped, you can flash the printer with as an Ender 3, not an Ender 3 V2. This works with the Creality 42X, SKR E3 Mini, and Easy boards when using our firmware. And then, like I said, you can even use the Easy board in the Ender 3 V2 if you change the LCD screen. And if we go here, you see we convert ours here at timestamp. So this was another Ask Tim stream. And you can see 13 minutes in, I'm going through just showing the different stuff with the LCD, and then literally take it off, swap it out, and update the firmware. It's not that hard. I literally show the firmware changes, put it in, and you can see I removed the screen, and now we have the regular screen on here. So I would highly recommend doing this. This is a very cheap upgrade. You know, you got the printed part, basically the printed part, and the screen. That's it. And the problem is that because this runs its own software, this is independent of your printer board for the most part, you can't really do as much with it. Whereas that other LCD screen is driven from the processor on the board, so it has full control over it. Let's see here. Oh god, there we go. Chat jumped again. Hang on. I'm trying to figure out where the hell I was. Oh, can we get a link for... Oh, here we go. Can we get a link for the Discord? It's discord.th3dstudio.com. It's I set up a redirect, so discord.th3dstudio.com. Thoughts on Luban? Top at Waffle S. I haven't used it, but I know Aaron has been, and he really likes it. And oh yeah, Doug, he replied, Luban is amazing. Luban is a piece of software that can take a big STL and chop it up into multiple parts to fit on smaller printers, and then you glue them all together when you're done. EDC 4MA, can I use your auto bed level on a BQB1? In theory, our sensor works on every single machine that runs open source firmware, you know, Marlin, Duet, and everything. But the problem is we don't have, we only have firmware for specific machines, and the BQB1 is not one we have support for. And if you got one, we wouldn't be able to assist with getting firmware set up for it. I believe that machine has a touchscreen, which could be problematic. It could be not. Some of the touchscreens are getting better to where they're driven off the processor, like in the King Rune. But the short answer in terms of it plug and play, absolutely not. But I haven't heard very good things about that machine. It seems to be kind of a touch and go. I've not heard anybody raving about how much they love it, is what I'm kind of getting at. I'm just pulling this up. Yeah, this has got their... Does that not have... I thought they put a bed leveler on there. Or I could be thinking of something else. Is this that weird one that's got the HDMI for the hot end? Or am I thinking of a different one? Oh no, this is USB-C, which is a terrible idea. Oh, some of the design decisions that these companies make. USB-C is not meant to be, like, moved back and forth on a printer head. It's a terrible idea. Thanks for the tip, Luis. I will put that towards my energy drink fund. Which, I wouldn't say I'm getting low. I got 4 things left. My wife commandeered a couple, but I have 4 things left. How many of you guys have actually bought the energy drink, the MAW, this stuff? That's what I'm drinking right now. I have, well, this isn't the one I'm drinking now. I'm drinking this one right now, which is the jungle berry one. Oh, I was like, I knew I had an apple one open. It's right here. Okay. Nicholas Ginsman. I got a V6 from here. Watch the video how to put it together. It keeps jamming, and it'll do that sometimes when I use an oiler. Any idea? Could be retracting too much. Hang on, I'm pulling up a link, and I will post that. We have a very detailed page here on things to do, and this is for any all-metal hot end. All-metal hot ends are nice because of the high temps they can go up to, but they can be problematic sometimes with PLA until they're like broken in or seasoned. I'll usually use canola oil, but if you're not going over like 275C, using that with our pass-through heat break and the tough tube is a really good combination, because then you get the benefits of the new hot end, but then you don't have the drawbacks of the all metal. And I'll show you what those look like here. Let me open up my correct browser here. It's the PTFE heat break. And it's this guy here. We run these in our farm just so we don't have to deal with all metals jamming, because they're, no matter what brand you go with, an all metal is going to be more prone to jamming with PLA no matter what brand it is. This gets rid of this. This goes right into there. You can go to the PTFE, our tough tube, which is linked right here. So this with that is a really good combination. And like I said, like the tough tube is good to use up to 275C. So if you're staying under 275C for your prints, I would really recommend going with this. And I'm sure if Top at Waffle's still in the chat, he's done this conversion on his printers that use the V6 style hot ends and loves it. But the main thing is you got to think about it with the all metals. If you guys ever cooked in like cast iron pans, the food sticks to it until you get a nice seasoning on the pan. It's the same kind of thing with the metal heat break. So, and when you use the filament oilers, it's a little thing you print out, you put a little sponge or paper towel in there, you put a few drops of like canola oil and you clip it on the filament. And then if you don't want to print an oiler too, what I've done too, just to get it started, if you dip the end of the filament into the canola oil and then feed it in, it will then lubricate that. And then you usually throw the oiler on there afterwards. Aaron's, we got some trolls here. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and bam. There you go. Yeah, there you go, Aaron. 343 orders shipped out today. BJ Savage, is the BL Touch bracket the same for the CR10 and ANET E10? I'm gonna say no because those have different carriages. Completely different carriages. Raj is asking when the Easy Plugs will be back in stock. I'm hoping the first or second week of January. They were never technically in stock. We just had the placeholder up there. But I have a bunch that are out to people that are testing them. So, but hopefully they're, as far as I know, I'm hoping they get out before like the Chinese holidays start hitting. But they've been working on them for a couple of weeks now. I got 500 of them, 250 of each kind coming. Oh yeah, you guys did see me trying to get out of my office. Forgot about the lock on the door. Yeah, that was rough. All right, let's go back through chat. I'm gonna do the little line thing. So this is our cutoff here. There's a cutoff. I'm gonna answer up to those. Oh, my chat jumped again. I was like, I know I answered most of these questions. Junkies asked, would the flex system work with my warped bed? So people ask this a lot. In theory, yes, it's going to make your bed less warped, but it's not going to make it perfect. You know, it is going to conform a little bit to the surface, but it's not going to make it absolutely flat. So, today, someone said, today Germany, Amazon has Tron XY XY2 Pro for 144 euros. I would stay away from anything Tron XY. There's so many other better printer brands out there to throw your money at. Tron XY is not one of them. Hang on. What is going on? We actually got some people getting... We got the banhammer out here. He got blasted by Scott. Bam. Banhammer time. There we go. They're gone. Let's see here. So yeah, Scott, that's why I said this one's kind of a weird thing. It's still limited. It has its own firmware, but like Scott said, and we went into this, it can draw, you can instruct it to draw things on the screen, but it's not implemented in Marlin yet, and I know they're working on that, but I know it's a shit ton of work. So my solution is just replace this and move on with my life for now. Maybe I still have it. Maybe we'll revisit it once there's new code out, but I don't have time to do the code. So... let's see here. EDC Ma, I've got my BQB1. I have 2 of them. I'll just see if I can get one for cheap. I'm not a fan of them using a USB-C for the hot end. That's just asking for that connector to break. Yeah, Jonesinator's on. I'm with you, man. USB-C connectors on the head, and then they got that other one that's using HDMI. Neither of those connectors are rated for movement. They're just not. Let's see here. Yeah, Top Waffle, when we were talking about the PTA break. I love those things. Yes, I am well aware. Well, why is my light cube not on? Because I forgot to turn it on. And guess what? We're at the end of the stream, so no light cube. Yeah, anyways, I will answer Tom Yo's question. What's your Sunlu S8 doing now? my Sunlow S8 was going to go in the printer farm, but then Mr. Top at Waffle in chat here was sent me a link. He's like, what do you think of this? Because he was thinking about buying one. I was like, I'll tell you what, I'll sell you the one I have because we don't need it in the print farm, and I just did all the upgrades on it. So he's picking that up this week. So the Sunlow S8 is going to Waffle in his print farm. Aaron told me we didn't need it in ours, so Waffle's getting a hell of a deal on that S8. It's got the flex plate, it's got the ABL, the upgrade extruder, and all this other stuff. Sean, oh, you got one from earlier? Hang on, Sean. Sean Youth, hang on, I'm searching for you. Okay, I think I found. Just ordered a Kinovo heater without the controller for an S5. Is there anything other than the SSR I need for the connection? I'm sure you probably have a million power cables laying around to cannibalize. Make sure you use something that's got 14 gauge wire. 16 you can get away with, but I'd recommend 14. I always put a 15 amp breaker before the solid state relay, so it goes from the line of the power cord breaker, out of the breaker into the SSR, and then out of the SSR into the heated bed. If you look on Thingiverse, Tiny Machines has some awesome like housings for the circuit breaker and strain relief for the bed. I've built now 4 S5s with Kinovo heaters, and I've used their parts on every single one of them. Chris is a great guy, so hope you got it from Chris. But yeah, I would also run, when we do the S5 builds, we will run a dedicated ground wire from the printer's plug. We'll do separate plugs for the bed. One for the bed, and the control box has its own. We'll ground the frame, and then we'll go from that grounding point on the frame with another wire to the printer's bed. Because you got to remember that bed's not electrically connected to the frame because it's isolated because of the rollers. So you want to make sure you ground the bed because that's AC power. In my opinion, every single printer that has an AC bed should have an extra grounding wire just to make sure that if there is a fray or something happens, that the electricity that's line voltage goes to the ground wire and not through your body, because it can kill you if it goes through your body. Electricity wants to find the path of least resistance. If you have a ground wire there, that's a much lower resistance than through your body. So you might still get a little zap, but you're not going to get anything crazy. It'll go through the ground wire, and hopefully your circuit breaker will trip, or you won't get electrocuted. That's the goal. Not getting electrocuted is the goal. So, damn it, I forgot. You know what? I'm gonna blame YouTube. Why does YouTube not do stuff? I'm sorry, I found your question. What's the reason we can't use a 5-volt plug at the EasyBoard to power Raspberry Pi? Because it's not spec'd for it. That regulator is spec'd to run the stuff that's meant to plug into the board. Do not run a Raspberry Pi off of the EasyBoard. You will overload the regulator. And it's fused at 1 amp, so you will blow the fuse. Run a separate power adapter. So hopefully that's it. Yeah. Anyways, it is now 3:42. I appreciate everybody stopped by. We have 127 people watching. All right, I'm going to head off of here, and I appreciate everybody stopped by. As always, I hope you guys learned something. We do these streams every Monday and Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time. Hope you guys are having a great week. I hope you guys have a Happy New Year. Hope you had a Merry Christmas. And as always, happy printing. I'll see you guys on the next stream.